Have you ever watched someone try to erase generations of hard work in just a few minutes? Because that's exactly what happened the morning two yellow bulldozers rolled onto my family farm without a single warning. The engines growled across the fields my grandfather had planted over 50 years ago. Dust filled the air. Workers jumped from the trucks, carrying chainsaws, survey stakes, and demolition equipment as if they already owned everything they could see. Standing in the middle of it all was the woman responsible, Rebecca Collins, president of the Oak Ridge Homeowners Association. She wore a perfectly pressed navy blazer, expensive sunglasses, and a confident smile that told everyone she believed she'd already won. She pointed toward my old red barn. "Start there." My stomach dropped. That barn wasn't just wood and nails. It held memories. My father had repaired tractors there. My mother had painted every spring. My grandfather had carved our family name into one of the beams decades earlier. I sprinted toward the bulldozers, waving both arms. "Stop! This is private property." The machines didn't even slow down. Rebecca folded her arms and looked at me like I was an inconvenience. "You're trespassing on HOA property now," she said calmly. I stared at her. "My family has owned this farm for 73 years. She smiled. "Not anymore." Those three words nearly changed my life forever. But what Rebecca didn't know was that before sunset, the entire town, the county sheriff, and one forgotten document hidden inside an old metal box would expose a secret that would destroy her career forever. My name is Ethan Carter, and my family has farmed Maple Creek Valley for 3 generations. Unlike the new neighborhoods surrounding us, our land wasn't bought by investors. It was earned. Every fence post had been hammered in by someone in my family. Every tree had a story. Every acre represented decades of sacrifice. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. I woke before sunrise, fed the horses, checked the irrigation system, and spent long days caring for crops that barely kept the bills paid. I loved every minute of it. Then Oak Ridge Estates was built next door. At first, everyone welcomed the new neighbors. Families moved in. Children played outside. Local businesses grew. But within a year, the HOA began acting as if they ruled the entire valley. Rebecca Collins became HOA president shortly afterward. She loved control. If someone's mailbox leaned an inch, she'd issue a violation. Wrong flowers? Violation. Wrong fence color? Violation. Holiday decorations, one day too long? Violation. People laughed about it until she started targeting properties outside the neighborhood, including mine. She claimed my tractors were visual pollution. She complained about livestock smells. She even demanded I stop harvesting before 7 in the morning because homeowners wanted to sleep later. I ignored every ridiculous letter. She hated that. One afternoon, she drove onto my farm in a luxury SUV without permission. "I have another complaint," she announced. I crossed my arms. "This is a working farm. It's lowering property values. This farm existed long before your subdivision. Things change." "No." I looked directly into her eyes. "People change." She drove away furious. I figured that was the end of it. I couldn't have been more wrong. Over the following weeks, strange things started happening. Bright orange survey flags appeared near my northern fence. Someone painted mysterious white markings on old oak trees. Drones flew over my fields almost every evening. When I approached them, they disappeared. My neighbor, Jack Thompson, walked over one evening carrying binoculars. "Ethan, something's wrong." "What do you mean?" "I've seen survey crews out here after dark. They're not county workers. Private company. Looking at your land." A cold feeling settled in my chest. The next morning, I visited the county records office. Every property map showed exactly what I'd always known. The Carter farm legally belonged to my family. Nothing had changed. Relieved, I returned home. Then another letter arrived. This one wasn't a warning. It was a demand. The HOA claimed a newly discovered property survey proved nearly 40 acres of my farmland actually belonged to Oak Ridge Estates. 40 acres, nearly half my property. The document included an official-looking seal and signatures. Something about it felt wrong. I immediately called the survey company listed on the paperwork. The receptionist searched for several minutes. Finally, she spoke quietly. Sir, that project number doesn't exist. I frowned. What? We never performed that survey. My heartbeat quickened. So these documents are fake? I'm afraid they appear to be. I thanked her and hung up. Someone had forged property records. But why? That answer arrived sooner than I expected. 3 days later, at exactly 8 a.m., the ground began shaking. At first, I thought it was thunder. Then came the unmistakable sound of diesel engines. I stepped onto my porch. 2 massive bulldozers, 3 dump trucks, a demolition crew, private security guards, nearly 20 workers, and Rebecca Collins standing proudly beside them with a clipboard. She smiled as if she were unveiling a new shopping center. Good morning, Ethan. I marched toward her. What is this? We're reclaiming HOA property. You forged those documents. She laughed. Tell that to a judge. You don't have a court order. I don't need one. She snapped her fingers. The bulldozers started moving. Straight toward my cornfield. I stood directly in front of the lead machine. The operator hesitated. Rebecca shouted, "Keep going." The engine roared louder. The steel blade came closer. 10 feet. 8. 5. Workers stared nervously. Even the operator looked uncertain. Then I heard tires screech behind me. A black pickup truck slid into the driveway. It was Jack. He jumped out holding his phone. "Ethan, I've called the county. I've called the state." And he looked toward Rebecca. "I've called the sheriff." Rebecca didn't even blink. By the time law enforcement gets here, she smiled coldly. There won't be a farm left to save. The bulldozer lurched forward once again. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if everything my family had built was about to disappear forever. The bulldozer crept closer, its steel blade only a few feet from where I stood. Dust swirled around my boots as the operator glanced nervously between me and Rebecca Collins. He knew something wasn't right, but Rebecca kept waving him forward with absolute confidence. "Move him out of the way," she shouted. Before anyone could react, the sound of sirens echoed across the valley. 2 Sheriff's Patrol SUVs rolled through the farm gate, followed by another county vehicle. Every worker stopped what they were doing as Sheriff Daniel Brooks stepped out. Tall, calm, and respected throughout Maple Creek County, Brooks had spent over 20 years protecting the community. For a brief moment, relief washed over me. Justice had arrived, or so I thought. Rebecca walked toward the sheriff with a bright smile and a thick folder already in her hands. "Thank goodness you're here, Sheriff," she said. "This man is interfering with a lawful property reclamation." She handed him several documents. Brooks studied them carefully without saying a word. His deputies quietly spread out across the property while I watched anxiously. Finally, the sheriff looked up. "Mr. Carter," he said evenly, "these documents appear to show that this section of land now belongs to Oak Ridge Estates." My heart sank. "They're fake." I protested. The survey company already confirmed they never issued those records. Rebecca laughed. "Convenient story." Sheriff Brooks frowned. "Do you have proof?" "I can get it." Rebecca quickly interrupted. "In the meantime, my contractors are losing thousands of dollars every hour." The sheriff looked from Rebecca to me. "I don't have enough evidence right now to stop the work." Those words hit harder than any punch. Rebecca's smile grew wider. "You heard him," she called out. "Resume demolition." The bulldozer roared back to life. Its blade tore through the first row of corn. Months of hard work vanished in seconds. The sound was unbearable. Every stalk that fell felt like another piece of my family's history disappearing forever. I wanted to stop it, but I couldn't risk being arrested. Jack placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't lose your temper. They're counting on that." I clenched my fists until my knuckles turned white. Across the field, workers began placing orange stakes around my old red barn. One of them spray-painted a large red X across the wooden doors. My chest tightened. That barn wasn't just a building. My grandfather, William Carter, had built it with his own hands after returning home from military service. Every beam, every nail, every plank carried his fingerprints. Inside still sat his original workbench, his old tools, his handwritten journals, his photographs. If that barn came down, decades of family history would disappear with it. Rebecca walked beside the demolition crew as if she were giving a guided tour. "Remove the barn after lunch," she ordered, "and level everything north of the creek." One of the contractors hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure? What if ownership is disputed?" Rebecca glared at him. "I'll handle the legal side. You just do your job." The contractor looked uncomfortable but nodded. Something about Rebecca's confidence bothered me. She wasn't acting like someone who believed she was right. She was acting like someone who believed she could never be questioned. That afternoon, while deputies remained nearby to prevent a physical confrontation, I drove straight to the survey company. The owner himself, Michael Reynolds, agreed to meet me. As soon as he saw the paperwork, his expression changed. "I've seen these before." "What?" "They're excellent forgeries." He pointed toward the official seal. "This logo is ours. The signatures look convincing, but they're fake. Someone copied them from old county files. Can you testify?" He didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." Then he opened a filing cabinet and removed another folder. "Ethan, there's something else." He laid several aerial maps across the table. "They hired us 6 months ago." "Who?" "Oak Ridge Development." My stomach tightened. What were they surveying? Michael traced a red line across the map. "They weren't planning a park. They wanted your farm." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" "They planned a luxury shopping district. Restaurants, retail stores, a hotel. They needed your property to complete the project." Everything suddenly made sense. The fake violations, the survey flags, the drones, the forged documents. None of it was about HOA rules. It was about millions of dollars. Rebecca had never cared about my cornfields. She wanted the land underneath them. Michael handed me copies of contracts and emails. "You'll want these." As I drove back toward the farm, my phone rang. It was Jack. "Ethan, you need to get here now." "What happened?" "They've started tearing down the barn." I slammed on the accelerator. By the time I reached the farm, one side of the barn roof had already collapsed. Would crash to the ground while clouds of dust filled the air. I ran toward the building. "Stop." Workers froze. Rebecca turned around slowly. "I thought you went home." I held up the survey company's signed statement. "Your documents are fake." She barely looked at it. Too late. Then she pointed toward the excavator. "Finish the job." The machine lifted its massive steel claw. Just before it struck the front wall, a loud voice echoed across the property. "Shut those machines down." Everyone turned. Sheriff Brooks had returned. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him came county investigators, a state land records officer, and 3 black SUVs from the district attorney's office. Rebecca's confident smile disappeared for the very first time. Sheriff Brooks walked directly toward her. His expression was completely different from earlier. Cold, serious, determined. He held up a thick folder. "Mrs. Collins, I think we're going to need a very long conversation." Rebecca tried to smile. "I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding." The sheriff looked her straight in the eye. "No, I don't think it is." Then one of the investigators stepped forward carrying a sealed evidence box. Inside it was a document that had been hidden for nearly 50 years. A document that would expose the biggest lie Rebecca Collins had ever told. And before the sun went down, the entire county would learn the truth. The entire farm fell silent as the bulldozer engines shut down one by one. Workers lowered their tools, neighbors gathered behind the fences, and every pair of eyes followed Sheriff Daniel Brooks as he walked toward Rebecca Collins carrying a sealed evidence box. The confident smile Rebecca had worn all morning began to fade. She glanced around, searching for reassurance, but the nervous expressions on her own contractors told her something had changed. Sheriff Brooks ordered everyone away from the machinery, while County Records Officer Linda Martinez carefully unlocked the old, rusted metal box. Inside were yellow documents wrapped in protective oilcloth. Linda unfolded the first paper and immediately recognized the official county seal. It was the original 1973 property survey of the Carter farm. One by one, she revealed the authentic deed the permanent boundary agreement, and historical county records proving beyond any doubt that Ethan Carter's family legally owned every acre of the disputed land. Rebecca desperately insisted their survey proved otherwise. But survey company owner Michael Reynolds stepped forward with a forensic report confirming the HOA's paperwork had been professionally forged using copied signatures and counterfeit seals. Before Rebecca could invent another excuse, demolition contractor Tom Henderson produced audio recordings from their earlier meetings. His phone echoed Rebecca's own voice across the silent farm, admitting that once the barn was destroyed, Ethan would never recover, and that nobody would question the paperwork until it was too late. Gasps spread through the crowd as the truth became undeniable. Sheriff Brooks nodded to his deputies, who immediately placed Rebecca in handcuffs on charges of fraud, forgery, criminal trespass, and conspiracy. Moments later, District Attorney Rachel Morgan revealed an even larger conspiracy involving Oak Ridge Development, fake property transfers, corrupt consultants, and a multi-million-dollar scheme to seize local farmland for luxury commercial construction. Investigators arrested several developers and document forgers on the spot, while stunned workers realized they had unknowingly participated in an illegal operation. In the days that followed, the community came together to rebuild everything the bulldozers had damaged. More than 200 volunteers repaired the historic barn, replanted the destroyed crops, restored broken fences, and raised a new sign reading, Carter Family Farm, standing strong since 1953. 6 months later, Rebecca Collins was removed permanently from the HOA. The development project was canceled forever, and the court sentenced those responsible for the fraud. Ethan stood beside the restored barn at sunset, running his hand across the wooden beam where his grandfather had carved the words, "Take care of the land, and it will take care of you." Looking across the peaceful fields, he realized that while people driven by greed may try to steal property, destroy memories, or rewrite history, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Rebecca had sent bulldozers to erase his family's legacy, but in the end, she destroyed only her own reputation, proving that no amount of power is stronger than honesty, justice, and a community willing to stand together.
Subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for new updates.